Hello my friends and friends of your Board in Fire channel. Today we will continue to cover the second Grand Prix 2022, which I remind you that the winner will be the 7th candidate for the championship of candidates to challenge the current world champion Magnus Carlsen, waiting for the third tournament, which will present the last candidate. Today we will present an analysis of the shortest match in the championship that ends with the victory of one of the parties, and perhaps the shortest match of the 3 championships that I have not yet reviewed. The semi-final match between Richard Rapport with the white pieces, versus Maxime Vachier-Lagrave with the black pieces. Now to the match analysis. Richard starts the match by opening the queen's pawn d4. Maxime replies knight f6 Indian defense of the king. c4 choice normal variation. g6 knight c3. d5 is the famous move of Grunfeld's defense, and it is one of the most famous defenses to respond to the opening of the queen's pawn, which I advise to study for those who want a suitable defense to respond to that opening. In general, we must be aware here that the champion of the last World Blitz Chess Championship is famous for using that defense to respond to the opening of the queen's pawn, which Richard made good use of, and his preparations for the match were impressive. To complement Richard, pawn capture pawn. Knight captures pawn. e4. Knight captures knight. Pawn captures knight. Bishop g7 is now the bishop in control of the diagonal. Bishop c4. c5. Now Maxime is trying to unlock the diagonal that his bishop has taken over. Of course Richard cannot capture the pawn or else Maxime responds. Bishop captures a thorn pawn. So Richard defended the pawn with the move knight e2 castles. Bishop e3. Richard increases the defense of his middle as it is an important diffusion step. Knight c6. This intermediate pawn became as if it was a battlefield. Rook c1. Pawn captures pawn. Pawn captures pawn. Queen a5 check. Now you can defend against that check with move queen d2, or king f1 and then push f pawn, then king f2 instead of castling, but Richard bravely played rook c3, so both the rook and the pawn are pinned. But Maxime here played a move that I think caused him to lose the match, as he played e5. If its purpose is to open the diagonal to his bishop, and attack the weak pawn, it is considered the worst move to make, because Richard simply replied d5, so he closed the diagonal on the bishop forever. Just as a weak pawn became a passable pawn. Now Maxime had a great counterattack with the move b5, and we present to you the following analysis of it. Bishop d3. Knight b4 attacking the bishop again. Castles. Knight captures bishop. Queen captures knight. b4 threatening rook. Rook c2 to protect the pawn. Bishop a6 now attacks many pieces on the white squares, and Richard will be busy defending them. But Maxime played knight d5. Bishop d2. Now Richard threatens an attack to reveal the queen, but what can he attack? Nothing, so Maxime didn't care and played bishop d7. Knight captures knight until he gets rid of the piece that attacks him. Pawn capturing knight is Maxime responding with the passable pawn, with the possibility of opening the diagonal to his bishop. It seems that he succeeded, but what is the future of that passable pawn? It is isolated, and the diagonal open to the bishop. There is nothing to attack him with. Rook c1 attacking the queen. Queen a3 so that his queen remains active and in attack mode. Queen b3 offers to trade queens. I think this trade is in his favor since Maxime's queen is active and causing him trouble. Maxime did not refuse to trade and play queen captures queen. Bishop captures queen. Rook a8. Attacking the passable pawn base. Pawn f3 defends the pawn and makes way for the king to activate, as we have already mentioned. Here Maxime would have preferred to play rook c8, but he made a mistake that cost him the match. And he played c5 attacking the pinned pawn. Richard responded with a move with which he began his sweeping attack, rook c7, attacking the bishop. Now if Maxime defends the bishop with the move rook d8, Richard will respond by attacking bishop g5 and threatening the rook. My friends, imagine that the search engine is suggesting to leave the rook as the best move for black and play pawn captures pawn, but why? Because if black defends rook with the move bishop f6, white wins by the moves, bishop captures bishop. Rook captures bishop. e5 threatening the rook. Rook b6, king d2 to activate the king and leave the file to the rook to occupy. There will be no moves for the black to stop the attack of the white or the advance of his impassable pawns. He will be able to win the match easily, as we see. If Maxime defends his bishop with the move rook e7, he will lose the match by the following moves: d6 discovering check and threaten the rook. Rook f2, rook captures bishop. d6 or any other move. Rook captures rook. Rook captures rook. Although the white has a chance to capture the rook, it is better to complete the moves, as you can see, to gain a sweeping advantage. But if he defends here with the move rook f7, he loses easily by moves, as we can see. So there is no defense for the bishop, but the c8 bishop's move seems good. She escapes with the bishop as she defends a pawn. No, my friends, it's not good at all. The response to it is easy: d6 discovering check. King h8. d7 fork and lose his bishop. That is why there was no solution for Maxime other than the move bishop b5. Richard replies with another great move a4. Now the bishop is forced to drop the diagonal, paving the way for Richard to push his pawn up the 7th rank with ease. Even a search engine move, which is a pawn capturing a pawn, ends with Maxime delaying with rook, as we can see, and a certain loss of the game. But in the game Maxime played bishop d3. Richard implements his plan successfully, and pushes the pawn to the 7th rank, threatening the rook. Maxime cannot play here rook d8, otherwise he will be attacked by the bishop easily, so he played rook b8 to defend the pawn and try to counterattack, as we will see shortly. Bishop b4 threatening the rook and controlling the diagonal. Bishop b5. Bishop captures rook. Bishop captures rook. Bishop b7 trying to control the upgrade square. King g7 tries to activate the king in an attempt to save the situation. e5, if the bishop captures him, his rook loses him when the white promotes a queen. b5 is trying to counterattack. Bishop f6 check. King f8. The search engine here suggests king f2, in order to make way for the rook to participate in the attack. But Richard preferred here e6. Bishop d8 to stop the advance of white pawns. Bishop b5 threatening rook. Rook b6. Bishop captures pawn. Rook c6. Pawn captures pawn. Bishop captures pawn. King f2. King e7, bishop e3. Bishop b6, rook d1. Bishop captures bishop check. King captures bishop. Rook c3 4, but it is useless. If the bishop is captured, the white will be promoted to queen. King f4. Maxime resigned because he wouldn't be able to stop Richard from upgrading his pawn if he played rook d3. Richard will respond rook captures rook, then win the bishop with the moves you watch, and then win the pawns easily. I hope that you have liked our analysis. We hope that you will support us by pressing the like button, and for those who have not subscribed to the channel, to be honored by subscribing to it, and waiting for our coverage for the rest of the tournament. We promise that we will spare no effort for your enjoyment and benefit.